What does channeling mean for you?
So really what channeling is you being able, or me, or anyone, being able to hold the space of clarity and allowance, and with the invitation, merge my consciousness with another consciousness. So Hathor has been given many names in different civilizations. So Aphrodite, Venus, Kuan Yin. As of about 2 years ago, they are back in the physical on Earth. It's all been building up towards full-on physical contact. So not exactly what your science, mainstream science, looks as the pyramids as 4,000 or 5,000 years. They're actually much older than that. Earth right now, as you mentioned, is going through a very significant, monumental transformation.
Hello and welcome to the New Earth Frequency podcast. I'm Genevieve Wood, and today our very special guest is Dr. Yafi Yair. She joins us from South Florida. She is an energy worker, a quantum healing hypnotherapist, a author of 2 books, and a channeler most known for bringing through the energy of Hathor, the ancient Egyptian goddess and divine energy. So thank you so much for talking to us today, Dr. Yafi. We really appreciate it.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
We had a lot of talk about you from Rob Gauthier, who was recently at our Ibiza activation. He says that when you present at events and bring through the Hathor energy, that you have a long line of people queuing up for you. He says you're one of the most popular channelers that he sees at events. We feel really privileged and excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you again. It's my pleasure. I think a part of the attraction is who I channel, which is my main source. I channel different sources, but my main one is Hathor, the divine feminine. And as you know, I think most people can tell that we really do have a reawakening of the feminine in today's world. And people see and feel it in their personal life, either the need for balance or just noticing that it's already happening naturally. And as we briefly discussed before we started the show, there is also a reawakening and interest in Egypt, ancient Egypt, and all this wonderful golden age that is becoming relevant again in our life today. And a lot of people are feeling it.
One of your books is Conversations with Earth. Is this linked to Earth's journey of, transformation, the new Earth?
Absolutely. That's what it is about. So in my first book, Conversations with the Earth, I really explored many different sources. It's very common for beginner channelers. And I channel different, but I was surprised with what came through. So I channel different earth elements, then like actual elements, fire, wind, water. And then I channeled the moon and Andromeda. And then it got more and more galactic. So different councils and different galactics groups and collectives, but the theme that everything, either from the Earth herself or all these other fascinating different galactic sources, it all points at the Earth right now, the evolutions that she's going through, and us as her inhabitants, our precious humans, are evolving with her. So that's the big shift that is happening, is the focal point of the whole book.
And there's been talk about this bit almost being part of Earth's natural procession, like we're in a new procession period. We've had the new Earth is splitting. I think that's more symbolic because there's infinite versions of Earth, so I understand. Is this something that, I'm curious from a personal perspective, is this something that I'm choosing in my reality, that there is this shift going on with Earth is splitting in this transformative time, or is this truly happening, if that's the right question to ask?
Yeah, so you are choosing it, but the point of choice, the you that chooses it, is really you from higher realms. So we can easily refer to it as your higher self. So it's still you, but it's a version of you that has more awareness and therefore is more connected to source and to all that is and to oneness. And that you mostly directs what's happening. So, for example, it is not a coincidence that you are here at this time. And this is true about you personally, and it's also true to anyone that would listen to us. So you chose to be here right now, whether you're having the time of your life or the worst challenging time you can imagine. You, on some level, chose to be here. And what's interesting that on a soul level, so many of us are so excited to be here that it's almost funny that our lower self, our human, dense, physical personality sometimes has such a hard time accepting the beauty and the excitement and the appreciation of our existence because our awareness is often narrowed to, again, what we can see, what we can perceive around us. And that can be very misleading, especially if you tend to listen to the news a lot and stuff like that. You can definitely miss out on all the beauty that is also happening and that is here.
We're in a very sort of spiritual community here in Ibiza, and a lot of people who come to the island are very attracted to, spirituality. And it's very easy to be spiritual here because it's so beautiful. You feel very, very grounded and connected to Mother Earth. When I speak to family and friends back home, if, for example, they said to me recently when we were doing our event in Ibiza, you realize it's winter back here, and what you guys are doing, it all sounds great, but it also sounds very esoterical. So what we're trying to do in New Earth Frequency is try to ground so the practices and the knowledge at the same time learn ourselves, because we're also on a journey of awakening. How can we explain channeling? You mentioned connecting to the energies of the moon, of the elements. What does channeling mean for you?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because there are a lot of ideas and also misunderstandings about channeling. So, really, what channeling is you being able, or me, or anyone, being able to hold the space of clarity and allowance, and with the invitation, merge my consciousness with another consciousness. So we can talk about Hathor. So I have a little invocation that I say inside. So I clear myself, I put myself in the highest frequency possible, and then I invite her in. And then once I invite her in, my job is to be somewhere back there in the background, holding the space, holding my focus, and that state of allowance, keeping Yafi, the Yafi personality, as quiet and focused as possible in the back while holding that space for the transmission to come through. But it's a merging of consciousness. So on some level in the background, I'm still aware. My awareness is reduced of my physical body um, because my focus is inward so sharply. But I'm still aware, I'm still me, but I'm allowing to the best of my ability to be a channel for whatever consciousness I'm merging with. So there's the aspect of invitation, the aspect of allowance, and then keeping that state of channeling.
So, a simple practice for people like someone like me who is so fascinated, so curious about this area, and yet I know that I'm channeling myself, many versions of myself, but to then feel like I'm channeling the moon, for example, what does that feel like?
You know, what does that feel like is really the right answer because it's really about feeling, and sometimes it can be very subtle. So as I learn to connect to different energies, I learn to feel them. Wow, it's very difficult to put into words, right? So some energies, for example, feel more expansive. Some energy feels more forceful. So an example, one time I channeled Yogananda. I don't know if you're familiar. He wrote the autobiography of a yogi. He was a very important Kriya Yoga teacher in the West. And it was so forceful, and even his voice, almost like yelling, like so commanding, it was so intimidating for me to channel. As a channel, I felt like I don't know if I could do the energy justice because it was so forceful and my voice needed to come through really loud and stern. And again, this is me. I am in allowance. I'm not gone. I'm not being possessed or taken over. So I'm still, everything that comes through needs to be allowed by me, which is the tricky part and why I need to work so hard to be in the background so I do not interfere with what they have to say. Because they're often, maybe even always, much wiser than me and have more insight and information than me. So Yogananda was very, very forceful, very stern. Yeshua, Jesus, on the other hand, was this loving, very, very neutral, very light. Not light is the opposite of heavy, but almost light in physical light, the way we see it. So there was a lot of light. I could see all that light. And Hathor, on the other hand, is very soft, at the same time stern, which sounds contradicting, but it's not when you feel it. So she has this loving, nurturing feeling, but also like very grounded, very of the earth, the way it feels, but not only of the earth. So you notice that language can be a little tricky when describing these sensations, but different entities feel different and sound different, but the sound is more, I think, subtle, but really feel different based on what they carry, based on their essence, based on their personality.
And how do you identify the personality? So when you're feeling that strong energy, was it because you invited it first, and therefore by that invitation you were identifying it?
Yes, and definitely the first few times. So now, for example, if I'm calling Hathor to channel and I go into my state and all of a sudden Viola the fairy comes in, who is super like bubbly and energetic. I Even if I called Hathor, as soon as Viola starts talking, and sometimes a few seconds before, I have the recognition that it's her. However, when I first started, I had no familiarity with her, so I wouldn't recognize her. So, yes, at least at first, the invitation of a specific entity or energy doesn't have to be an entity as we know it. So, notice I first, in my book, Conversations with the Earth, the first consciousness I channeled is fire consciousness. I didn't even know fire consciousness can communicate with us or give us information that could be translated into verbal information. So you don't even have to connect to a specific entity. You can start with elements such as fire, water, air, right? And even just by thinking about them, you can tell they're going to have very different energies, right? Fire is very different than water. So
Fascinating.
yeah, so practicing that connection and just
Hmm.
feeling the differences between the energies is a really, really good practice to tell the difference, to exercise your discernment, and to tell the difference from one essence to the next.
I know that you are a follower, fan, or student of Dolores Cannon, and you are
Yes.
a trained quantum healing hypnotherapist as well. I remember reading books myself of Dolores Cannon and listening to some of her explanations. And she would say that, when we go back into past lives, we've all been everything, including the elements, including light. So for me personally, that helps me understand that there is this possibility of then therefore connecting to the elements.
Yes, and you know what's interesting about it? That I don't have memories of lives on other planetary system. Mostly. There are tiny exceptions, but mostly. Some people, yes, I remember living in Sirius, in Arcturus. I don't have those memories, but I do have a vague memory for being the closest we can say it in words is wind, which is a very strange memory, but I remember, and maybe channeling the wind awakened that memory even more clearly, although I had it to some extent before, but it sharpened it. I remember being not having a body and just floating or flying or floating over the surface of the earth before it was real surface of earth. But I have this really abstract memory, but it's an actual memory. And again, the closest we can call it is wind. But wind, to our understanding as humans, doesn't have personality, doesn't have consciousness, doesn't have awareness. But obviously, there is consciousness, there is awareness, but we may not have the language for it other than call it wind.
And I think that's for us, because we don't get taught in school, the fact that everything is energy, everything is vibrating. And wind to me must be collective then, because it's everywhere, isn't it, in our physical reality? So in a way, is it like a collective energy that you're tapping into?
It's possible, but a collective again sounds very well formed. Wind may be something more open and abstract than that, but we can call it a collective as long as we allow flow and freedom within our own definition.
Right. And Hathor, I'm very fascinated by, she was a divine goddess or divine energy that the ancient Egyptians worshipped. So
That's right.
she's considered an Egyptian goddess. I'm fascinated. So does that mean that the ancient Egyptians were able to tap in and channel her energy, or you referred to Hathor as a they?
Yes. It's a little confusing. There are many layers to it. But so we know the name Hathor from ancient Egypt. And so we know her as a goddess. And the Egyptian mythology tells us that the gods actually walked the earth in the physical in this time. So it wasn't just a story, it wasn't just a goddess they channeled. It was someone they interacted with, not only Hathor, all the gods. And through my channeling, Hathor said that this is accurate. They actually walked the earth, they actually had physical bodies. However, even though that's how we know the name Hathor, that one physical body is not who and what Hathor is. So Hathor has been given many names in different civilizations. So Aphrodite, Venus, Kuan Yin are only a few of the names that actually refer to the same essence. So that's why she often refer to themselves as the divine feminine because it's so much broader. It's so much wider than a singular person or even a singular goddess. Because within the essence of Hathor is the divine feminine, loving creation, all that is balanced femininity within humanity and the earth. And of course, it goes beyond the earth because one of the reasons they say we, and not I or she, I say often she, but they often refer to themselves as plural because they're also a collective from the Sirius star system. And we actually never asked them that. But I wonder, maybe we can ask on a channel. I wonder if the physical bodies that they manifest here when they come here are similar or identical, represent the physical bodies that they had in Sirius before they ascended to become non-physical. So I'm not sure of that, but one would assume that that is why they choose to manifest in that specific form.
And what period of time were they here on Earth in physical form?
I don't know. We should ask them. But I do know, which is, I think, one of the most exciting information that has come through me, probably the most, that as of about 2 years ago, they are back in the physical on Earth. So Hathor and many of the gods that we know from ancient Egypt, but really the Hathor and the Hathors, and I think Isis is included in that, but there are different names that are included in that, are actually on the Earth in the physical once again. So until 2 years ago, they didn't come back in the physical. The contact was only via consciousness. So me channeling, and I know there are a couple of other people that have channeled Hathor, maybe more than a couple. And also we are awakening in our own personal lives in different ways. But it's all been building up towards full-on physical contact, and it's still building towards that. And a really exciting step in that approximately 2 years ago, they arrived at the Earth once again. They're in a secure location, non-disclosed. I think it's related to a mountain, and they're preparing towards not only contact with me. I'm hoping I'll be one of the first. I've
Yeah.
had some contact, but not as a person to person. So I've had lights in the sky, I've had different nature and animal manifestations around me, but I'm really excited and looking forward to that physical being, conversation, relationship, and sharing it with everyone. And I think that's where we're headed.
Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know that because one of my questions was around contact because it was covered in the recent book, your second book on channeling the divine goddess,
Yeah, conversations with Hathor, channeling the divine feminine.
feminine, right? So you also, well, when you channel Hathor, you often sing because she was also the energy of music, or sort of a goddess of music and motherhood. And I've seen you, you know, with speaking light language and in a sort of musical way. Recently heard from another channel that light language is your soul's, there's a vibration when you allow your soul to speak, or your soul to speak through your body, and there is a frequency that's very activating for you. Could you elaborate on that from your
Yes.
perspective?
There so light language is the human term. Hathor usually calls it field tuning. That's the way they refer to it. And there are different parts of it. So when I do the light language, the actual spoken, though I will say that when I started, it was more separate and now it's more mixed in. But when I started, the language part of it, the light language, which just sounds like a beautiful gibberish, for me comes from Isis. And she's the one doing the speaking. And when she does that, I see the actual words as white light, ribbons of white light that are going to people, are interacting with their energy system, but very specifically their chakras, the heart. Yesterday, to my surprise, it was a brief transmission. It was all about the head, which never happened before. It's very unusual. But usually it's the heart and the spine. And then Hathors, they bring the music into it and more sounds and tones. And their impact is more, and that's why they call it field tuning, is to interact with our energy field. So once we are more balanced, all of a sudden they amplify the field. And then they make us resonate in coherence, us and anyone listening. And once we resonate in coherence, it amplifies our field even more. It's like metronomes that begin synchronizing and beating at the same exact pace. So we amplify even more. And that is what the field tuning. And the human voice is an important part of it. It's a carrier of frequency. And the different sounds are also carriers of frequency. So there are different elements here. That's why each channel that channels light language, it is going to be a little different, because even if we're channeling the same source, because the vehicle, the person, is a filter on so many levels, and our frequency and our specific pathway to that source is also being channeled and sent to the people that can hear.
Thank you. It's wonderful to hear that explanation, because it's something that I used to make fun of, to be quite honest, when I'd hear people talk about it. And actually now I'm, understanding things more, and I'm actually very fascinated in this topic. And I'm actually just been doing it, in my private time as well.
Ooh. I teach light language. I would love for you to be in my group. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's such a beautiful class because it really teaches you two main things. So one, to be a channel, because light language is channeling, and two, to express it with your voice. And the fact that it's light language and not regular language that you can understand really helps you bypasses that left brain, critical mind, and be in a state of allowance without worrying what comes out, what does it mean, what am I saying? You can just be in the being of it. So it's a beautiful practice, even for yourself, if you just do it for fun, because you're learning to be in that flow and also to interact with your voice in that loving and spiritual way.
Because even they say there's vibrations when with with sort of three types of vibration that's very healing for you. So if people can wrap their heads around that and understand that, then they can understand light language a bit more. So I love that.
Can I just say about Om that they told me? So when I speak Latin language, I often say Om or home or whom. They don't always pronounce it like we do, but they told me that what it means is love. So that actually a word with meaning with the ancient languages, and it means love. So when people meditate on Om, they're really meditating on love.
Love that.
Isn't it beautiful?
It's got goosebumps. That's so beautiful. Yeah. How has Hathor changed, the wisdom of Hathor, and I guess all the energies, but with Hathor, changed your life personally? And is there, does it mean you have all the answers on tap?
We never have all the answers. I think the more we learn, the more we realize how little information and answers we have. So I definitely don't have all the answers. Do I have broader insight than I did before? Yes, but it's really not about the knowledge. We're all growing and we're all accumulating knowledge and becoming hopefully wiser and wiser. However, the journey of integrating Hathor and her essence into my life has been a journey of finding even deeper trust within and trust in the universe, being even more open, more vulnerable, which by the way has been a ride. Let me tell you, having thicker skin is much easier to go through the world than being open and vulnerable. So it has been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of beautiful experiences, but not only beauty, a lot of challenges as well, because integrating that feminine aspect is learning to let go of control on the deepest level that you can imagine in your life. And, I'm originally a type A personality. Control just comes naturally. And as a therapist, I'm a doctor of clinical psychology. So as a therapist, you want to fix everyone and help everyone. That's a form of control. And this journey has really been very, very deeply, again, as deep as possible, applying that notion of no control and just trust and just to go with the flow. And also beautiful things like reawakening my connection to music and to movement and to my own voice. So it really has changed my life a lot. I feel like it accelerated my growth. So all these things that we're talking about trust and about going with the flow, these are not new concepts. These are things that I've been working on for years now, being heart-centered. Maybe that's really the main thing that we haven't even mentioned. But learning to be less mind centered and mind oriented and more being in your heart and coming from the heart, that is such a big lesson. And it's something, like I said, it's not new. I've been on this spiritual journey for a while now, and that has been a part of my path. But integrating Hathor into my life and into my personality and into my beingness have taken all these lessons to the next step. And that has been the biggest influence in my life.
Just listening to you describe that, I'm immediately like connecting to the allowing, the receiving, the, being more heart-centered because and actually lately I've been running around, stressed. And today when I sat and did some yoga and meditation, I just was like, you need to receive.
Hmm.
Just need to allow and open up the floodgates to receiving. And it just felt so beautiful to do that.
Meditation is so important. I think everybody should meditate. Everybody should find time in their life to meditate. If you really want to dedicate yourself to that spiritual journey, I recommend longer meditations. But even if you're just doing it as a connection tool, revitalization tool, learning how to focus and clear your mind tool, or learning mindfulness, whatever your approach is, if you can just do 10 to 20 minutes a day, I think that really is a must for everyone because we are in these times of acceleration. There's so much happening around us. It's so easy to get caught in the mind and in the doing and in the environment and forget the stillness within and how important that is. And anyone, for example, that even has sleeping issues, it's almost guaranteed that if you pick up meditation and be consistent about it, your sleeping problems will go away because your mind needs that time of quiet, of focus. It's both exercise for the mind, but also just like exercise, after exercising, you feel even more awake and energized. You're not beat, usually. I guess it depends how you do it.
Well,
So, the same with meditation. It's exercise for the mind, it stretches that muscle of focus,
mm,
but it's also really energizing. So,
mm.
it's not exercise for the mind that makes your mind tired and numb. It's exercise for your mind that keeps it awake and connected and sharp and clear.
Yeah, and that's definitely been my experience. When I think I'm too busy for meditation, I always have that. There's that saying that that's when you should do double. When you think you're too busy, you should do an hour, an hour of
Mhm.
meditation instead of half an hour. I certainly do it to just remember, just connect to that essence and just kind of go, hey, everything's okay. All this stress that you're doing, you're not saving the world, and just to trust that everything's okay and allow. So for me, it is definitely self therapy for me.
Absolutely.
I would love to invite Hathor. Is Hathor willing and able?
Always. I think she's always willing. So we're going to start with some light language and field tuning, and then you can talk to them. I'm going to call Hathor.
Thank you very much.
Heriana harakia turustu hamaya. Kikriana turu hai anarakatia. Tirania kahariamu huarania. Katirania tirastianakati. Ur an iakatirastiana. Akrianu turustiana am ar at ak. Unarea taraieta norohomaya. Hekariani tirastuyuna hareana. Humareyena horuonaye. Titriana hoyenai. Kuntarayo homarai. Homariani hayaham. Horoyani karyani aham. Urumayena haryani. Uruyuna ha ha ha. Uruyena. Uruyena. Kikriania rastiana tarai. Greetings and blessings to you.
Greetings. Thank you.
It is our pleasure to be here in this space and to share these frequencies with you. The ones of you that are more sensitive may continue closing their eyes, feeling their energy as a lot has been moved. You may notice that the movement of energy can be both gentle yet profound at the same time. So, the ones of you that are more sensitive, please feel free to take your time and listen with your eyes closed, allowing the energy to continue flow through you.
Thank you. I wanted to close my eyes. Hathor, thank you for being with us. May we start off by asking you to tell us who you are?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know the name Hathor from ancient Egypt, but we will give a broader description of the way we perceive ourselves. So, our closest emanation to source. So, if you think about it in linear time, you may think of it as our earliest existence. If you look at it more quantumly, it is not a long time ago, but the closest to source emanation. And in that timeline or understanding, you may think of us as the divine feminine, as the aspect of source that is loving creation. So you may understand that source has the structure, which you may see as the masculine, and the creation, the flow of creation, which you may see as feminine. Our essence is one of flow of creation. So this is our earliest memory understanding of our own beingness. From there, we passed several layers and at some point arrived at the Sirius star system. And although we later spread to the whole system, we began in Sirius A and Sirius B, which are two stars. So first we merged with the star, and then we incarnated, you may use that term, as physical bodies on one of the planets in Sirius B. So our first physical dense that you could actually interact with very theoretically, because we're talking about different timeline, was in Sirius B. And that is where we evolved as physical people to once again ascend beyond the physical and become a collective, hence the divine feminine, hence the Sirius connection. And we begin operating as a collective in different energy systems and with the earth as well. So our involvement with the earth preceded humanity as you know it today. We hope this sheds some clarity into our being, although it may confuse some, and we will always take any follow-up or clarifying questions to anything we say.
When you incarnated on Earth, what period of time, if we were to talk linear time, at least in the timeline that I'm living in, was that period?
Our involvement with Earth was before physical people as you know it. So we were a part of your planet before you would recognize us as a physical incarnation. So it is from the creation of the earth or close to it in your reference of time that we began integrating our essence with this planet in the creation of the different plant life and animal life, and yes, eventually people. So when you talk about timeline, you're talking about millions of years. However, in terms of relevance to your civilization, we can even move as near as ancient Egyptian time, which is approximately 12,000 years ago. So not exactly what your mainstream science looks as the pyramids as 4,000 or 5,000 years. They're actually much older than that. And there are other pyramids, there's much more underneath, but the ones that you know on the surface are much older than a few thousand years. These versions of them are closer to 12 to 13,000 years ago, which is the most recent major construction and update of those structures. We were involved in that. Before that, you could see our involvement with Atlantis and other previous civilizations. And you may see that timeline as approximately 100,000 years ago. So, in your frame of reference and what's relevant to the understanding of people today, you may say that our main concrete interactions began approximately 100,000 years ago. However, once again, we are forcing the reality into boxes that can be addressed and understood cognitively and taking linear time into consideration.
So if we were to continue with the linear time, it was sort of around the time of the Atlanteans, 100,000 years ago. Were they aware of your presence, your energy? Were they, like Dr. Yafi, were able to connect with your collective?
Yes, but not exactly like Dr. Yafi, because the times were different. And we had many priests and priestesses in the time of Atlantis walking the earth. Then you may even see it more as a full-on incarnation, although even then we were not born into a baby body, but more manifested our physicality through slowing down and densification of our light bodies. But we actually did that in the Atlantis days from later childhood, so we got to experience some maturing and growing in on Earth, but not from babies. You may say that we appeared in the physical as teenagers. And we shared our teachings and our ways. As I mentioned, we were often priests and priestesses and active in that form of sharing spiritual teachings. As the mystery schools that were not as mysterious or secret at most of the time in Atlantis. Later on, we had to operate in secrecy to hide certain elements from other forces that were present. But the majority of the existence was out in the open, and we were one of the peoples, not one, but of the peoples, rather than channeled entities that are not in physical form.
Was your appearance when you were in physical form, beginning as a teenager or an adult, was it similar to the Assyrian being?
Our form usually represents the local culture. So we choose a form that is true to our essence, but that corresponds with the local culture and understanding. An example would be in Sirius, some of our manifestation were aquatic or what you may call amphibious. When we come to interact with humanities today, we do not appear as amphibians because that would make the communication harder, that would make the acceptance of us harder, and we would not be able to speak speech as you know it in our amphibious body communicating with humans. So as a result, when we interact with humans on your planet, our form that we choose, we don't bring it out of nowhere. It's still one of our forms. It's the equivalent of you changing clothes or changing your hairdo. It is still you. We still have a form that's true to us, but that's relevant and understandable and applicable in the system in which we are operating.
Thank you. The Dendara, the temple of Hathor, what is the connection for you there? Were you present there? And can people connect with you or with your collective energy more there than they could anywhere else?
Yes and no. So yes, we were involved in constructing some of the temples, but we were not the builders, especially when you talk about Dendera and other temples. We were influential in the design. And yes, some of our essence is actually there. However, you do not need to be there to connect to our essence. So some people, depending on their physicality more than anything else, when they go to the temple, to the Hathor temple, they can feel our essence very strongly, very viscerally. To some, it may even appear as nausea and weakness to the physical system because it can be so powerful. However, this depends more than anything on the physical body of the person rather than how close they are to the essence, as some people able to hold that frequency and channel it so the energy runs through them rather than get stuck and overwhelms the system. So there are different ways to experience, and yes, you may feel our essence when you're there, but you don't have to go there to connect to us. Even if you go in your mind to the Hathor temple and in your mind to the Great Pyramids, that is a way to connect to those locations and the energies associated with them without being them physically. And of course, you may connect to us without evoking Egypt at all, just in your own personal life. So there are different options for you to choose from.
Thank you. I love that. I do want to go there, but I love that I can connect there, and I'm sure many others will love that. Um, you are here helping us guide, I guess, Earth on this new transition, this new awakening, this more divine energy that we are wanting to embody. Can you explain your messages for humanity right now and what you see for Earth's timeline?
Yes, Earth right now, as you mentioned, is going through a very significant, monumental transformation. You may say it's the fourth of its kind, but you may also say that it is new and one like never before. So in some ways, it's the first of its kind, although it is the fourth cycle of your beautiful planet. And in this beautiful shift or ascension, different words may be used, or evolution or transformation, humanity and the earth are literally breaking the old mold and shifting into the next octave, the next level of frequency. As this happens, the old skin, the old shell must be broken, cracked, and eventually dispensed of, being transformed into the next level. This is what is happening right now. So whether you see the evolution in your life and in others, or whether you see the chaos that's happening on your planet, know that this is the same process of this transformation that is taking place. And the end result is a lighter frequency humanity that is more aware of its oneness with each other and all that is, moving together in greater sense of harmony and connectedness.
Will we see less wars? And when will that happen in the timeline that I'm living in?
Yes, you will definitely see less wars. Conflicts completely will not disappear. However, war, as you know it, will disappear from the planet. The timeline is tricky because even your experience of time is going to change. However, we can mention that 7 years is a critical time in your timeline in terms of no more wars.
Right? That's wonderful to hear.
And even before that, wars will change and become more conflict-like. So it's not like there's going to be chaos and mayhem, and in 7 years, a switch will be flipped and all will be well. This is happening in steps.
Right. And Dr. Yafi also mentioned and was included in the book that she wrote, Conversations with the Divine Goddess, Conversations with Hathor, that we are going to be preparing for contact, even contact with you. And
Yes.
you will, apparently, you have incarnated again on Earth and you are hiding somewhere or somewhere safe, I should say. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, so we did not incarnate. We manifested our bodies, and not as babies and not as teenagers, but as adults, as fully formed, mature adults. So this is a little different than incarnation, because in an incarnation, soul comes into the earth system through being birthed and experiences the filter of what you often call as the veil of forgetfulness. When we manifest ourselves as mature, fully beings, we do not experience the forgetfulness as we maintain the density of what you may refer to as light bodies. So we are physical, but at a higher octave than you are now. Although you have already started shifting into the next octave. Contact, physical contact with us and other dimensional entities, because we're not the only ones here at this point, at this time, is going to become more and more available and accessible to humans. So contact has many layers and many steps along the way. First, major contact, and when we're saying major, we mean the general public, is going to be with fully physically dense individuals, similar to yourself. The element of familiarity, the element of being able to recognize them as human-like is very significant. However, as this progresses, contact with interdimensional beings such as ourselves will become more and more available. First to specific individuals, then to specific groups, and eventually to the population as a whole. But it is a process that needs to be taken very deliberately as to enhance the harmony of flow of your evolution rather than hamper it in any way.
I think I might have time for one more question. Thank you so much. I've got loads more, but I'll stick with one. Do you have
Excellent.
a message for our listeners today that you feel compelled to share?
Yes. So let us see what we'd like to share. Yes. We invite each and every one of you find your personal pathway of evolution. We feel that many look at others, whether it's Dr. Yafi or anyone in your environment, whether they're celebrities or whether they're people that you know, and tend to compare and not compare in order to get inspired, but compare to allow the ego to emphasize the differences as weakness, as my life is not going as well as somebody else's, my challenges are not as easy, my life is not as full, or whatever story comes up with that comparison. We invite each person, each individual, to find their own inner light. You are just as bright and important as anyone else. Even when you talk to us and other teachers, other guides, it doesn't matter if they're ascended masters, archangels, or gods. You must come into a new understanding where we are all in it together. So we invite each and every one of you to find your inner path, inner light, and shine in your own unique way, as this is why you came here at this time. This is what you are here to do and be.
I love that so much. Our purpose is to be our unique self. And that's our gift to each other and to ourselves. I love
Absolutely. And to source.
Flawless. I love that. Thank you so much, Hathor. Thank you very much for sharing your gifts with us and for being here with us today. Deep gratitude and love.
It is our pleasure. We enjoy this beautiful, loving co creation immensely and extend our love and gratitude to you and all who is listening.
Thank you. Eh, well, are you okay?
Yes.
Wow, that was wonderful. Just wonderful.
Thank you.
I have 20 more questions. And whenever I listen to these podcast interviews, I always think, why didn't the person ask this? And I now understand it's because they've run out of time to ask all the questions.
I
Thank you.
think it makes them very happy that they trigger more questions and curiosity and openness within us. I think that's what makes them so happy. And for me, as Yafi, I can say that probably the way you ask the questions, so I'm giving you a lot of credit for that. They actually explain things in a way that I've never heard, in really nice breakdown, easy to grasp, like their identity and the layers to it. They refer to it a lot, but the way it was explained here, I can understand it better as Yafi. So I found the questions to be very, very helpful.
Oh, wow. Great. Well, I mean, it was so incredible and just fascinating. And I really feel when we're talking about this, journey that Earth and humanity's on, that, we're just at the beginning of understanding energy and how to connect to, the energies of collectives like Hathor. There's still some people that will say not understand it. And I think it feels that we're just at the beginning of a new time. So it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Dr. Yaffe, you provide all sorts of one-on-one sessions. I've seen even quantum healing hypnosis. You have readings with Hathor. Could you share how people can connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. My website is yafichanneling.com. So my first name, Yafi, Yafi, channeling.com. And there you can read about the different individual sessions that I offer, about the groups. I teach light language and channeling. I do travel. Next January, we're going to Egypt. And there are all kind of fun events happening.
Wow, thank you so much. And we'll pop the links in the description in whatever platform we're publishing this, YouTube, Spotify. And hopefully, Dr. Yaffe, this will be the first of many other interviews. I just found that so fascinating. I find you so fascinating. Thank you
Thank
on behalf
you.
of us for everything that you share with the world.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, and I agree. This is just the beginning.
Thank you for your time and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.